All right. Good morning. I appreciate your content. I have a question. I gained about $120,000 in equity after purchasing a new construction February 2020. About to list the home and use entire proceeds for my first rental. What would you do with $100,000? Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And congratulations on gaining that much equity. And I think the $20,000 discrepancy between your equity, you're probably considering the realtor fees and just what it takes to sell a house. So good work there on running your numbers pretty well. The first thing that I would do is I would try and figure out if there is any opportunity for you to keep the house and still utilize the equity. So, does this property make sense as a rental at all? If you have $120,000 of equity in it, probably not, but maybe, depending on what your mortgage is and what the rental rate may be. And if there is any scenario at all in which the property makes sense as a rental, then I would keep the property as a rental. I would move out if you're living in this house. I would rent the property out. Perhaps before I'd move out, I would try and find a local credit union to give a home equity line of credit or to do a cash out refinance on the property, whichever one you're more comfortable with. As a general rule of thumb, the fewer strings that money has, the better off you are. Lines of credits have just a little bit more strings attached to them than the cash out refinance. So if you're able to do a cash out refinance, pull out that equity and still be cash flow positive when you're running it as a rental, I would do that. If you are not necessarily able to be cash flow positive after you do a cash out refinance and pull out the amount of equity that you're interested in pulling out, then I would check and see what the opportunities for you to get a HELOC are. Because that won't impact your numbers. Your mortgage is going to stay the same. And then that line of credit, kind of like a credit card secured by your house, you're only going to pay interest as you utilize those funds. And since you're using those funds to acquire a rental property, then you will have the ability to immediately make cash flow on that new rental property. Now, the only caveat is you want to be careful when you are acquiring long term assets with short term capital. So, lines of credits aren't necessarily the best things to use for acquiring new properties, especially in the event of down payment, because you're going to have to pay off that line of credit somehow. Mortgage is $1,200. Rental is about $2K in the area, but rental subdivision on my street are staying on the market. My wife is an agent, but not experienced as an investor. Also a veteran. Sweet. I mean, there's a decent spread there between the rental rate and the mortgage. I would try pretty diligently to figure out how to make the numbers work and hold on to this property as a rental. And then I would figure out a way to utilize the equity while still owning the property, because in the long term, holding on to properties always makes more sense than selling them if you have the ability to use them as a rental and have cash flow coming in from them, because you're still going to get the appreciation on that, which you've experienced a great deal of already. And for the most part, generally speaking, that's only going to go up if you have a long enough time horizon to experience that. The way that I approach all of these types of situations is like through a long-term perspective. And, I want to own any of the properties that we purchased for, several decades. And hopefully I will pass down all of these properties to my kids if they're willing to take these properties. Refinancing a property, utilizing your equity, holding on to it as a rental doesn't trigger any taxable events. Sure, the cash flow from the property is going to be taxable, but you're going to have the appreciation. You're going to continue to have that principal pay down every time you make that mortgage payment. And you're also going to have all the tax benefits associated with that property. Now, if you were to sell that property, even after your fees, you'd be left with 100. I'm not quite sure about your situation with the property. There's a chance, depending on how long you live in the property. I'm not up on these things because it's just not selling property isn't part of our business model. But there's a chance if it's your primary residence that you don't pay any of the capital gains tax. However, if you are taxed on that, it'll hurt and it'll lessen that amount. So from a numbers perspective, if you have the ability to not pay taxes on the money that you pull out, and in the event you have to pay taxes, the amount of money that you're left with after you pay the taxes may be comparable to the amount that you're going to get from a HELOC or from a cash out refinance, which if it's owner occupied, you might be at 95%. If you are refinancing as an investment property, you get 75%. So we're talking about the difference of 20%, which is likely the same amount that you're going to be taxed if you have to do so. All in all, I guess what I'm saying is it makes sense to hold on to things as long as you can, if you have the ability to still create cash flow from it. I also, am prone to some hoarder-like tendencies, and I would just prefer to sell nothing ever. Option A for me, to summarize, would be keeping the property, renting it out, even if you have to go slightly below market since they're sitting. Just get it rented so that you're not out of pocket on a monthly basis, and then utilize the home equity line of credit to jumpstart your ability to acquire additional properties. Just keep in mind that you're going to want to pay off that line of credit pretty regularly. If you're still living in it long enough, do the cash out refinance before you leave. That way you get 95%, or set up that HELOC before you go, and then keep it in your portfolio and let time and that asset start working for you via the appreciation, principal pay down, and tax benefits. And you're still going to have some money available to you that you'll be able to go out and purchase some additional properties. If you have to sell it, it sounds like you've already done one round, and your wife being a realtor, you're already familiar in the market. So if you do have to sell it, then I would just be mindful to make sure that any property that you purchase in addition satisfies that purchase price plus rehab cost is equal to or less than 75% of the after repair value. Okay, then I would go that home equity line of credit route so that you don't mess up with that interest rate. And this interest rate is another significant reason as to why you do not want to sell this house and you want to keep it as a rental. So even if you have to take a haircut on the market rent and rent it out for 18 or 1900 instead of that 2000 just to get it rented, a warm body in there, another income earner to pay that mortgage payment for you, then yeah, 2.99%. I mean, yeah, so that's a real victory. Because anything that you go out, let's say, you capture that 100 grand and you're able to go out and get something. Whenever you get a new loan on it, you're not going to get 2.99%. Yeah, under no circumstances. Under no circumstances is my opinion, should you sell that house. But again, there's just as many ways to make money in real estate as there are people investing in real estate. And my particular style of investing in real estate could be comparable to hoarding. Thanks for watching that clip. I thought that was a good question. And I think you can ask good questions too. Join us every Friday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time for a live stream Q&A where we answer plenty of questions just like this one. In the meantime, consider subscribing to the channel if you want more of this content. And if you want to increase your deal flow, analyze properties better, and help me feed my family, click the link below for a free 7-day trial of PropStream.